Hi, I'm Donna Cansfield. Many of you may have remembered me from a few years ago where I sat in the other seat doing some of these shows. I want to say thank you to Rogers. It's wonderful that they're still doing this on behalf of the members. But today I'm here as the host on behalf of Yvan Baker, who is the new member for Etobicoke Centre. And as I said, I'm delighted to be here. Yvan is doing an absolutely superb job in the riding. He really listens to his constituents. He hears what they have to say, and more importantly, he takes actions on those issues which are really important to each and every one of you. So this afternoon we're going to talk about some of those issues, and I'm going to introduce you to Yvan Baker. Hi, Yvan.
Hi, Donna. Thanks very much for doing this.
I'm delighted to be here. It's fun to be back in the Pink Palace, as they say.
It's fun to have you back.
So let's talk a little bit about that big elephant that's in the room and that's out there. Let's talk a little bit about hydro.
Sure.
Tell me what's going on.
Yeah. Well, rates have gone up too high too quickly for people. I know that a lot of people are struggling with their hydro bills. I think most of our viewers would have heard about what the Premier recently decided, which was that everyone would get a 25% reduction on their hydro bills, and that electricity rates would be capped at 2% growth per year for the next 4 years. But I think that there's a larger discussion, there's a lot more work that has to be done on this issue to make sure that hydro rates are affordable for people in the years to come. One of the key reasons that hydro rates are, one of the things that drives hydro rates up really is the cost of the system. And as you know, Dawn, I come from a business background and a finance background, and from my vantage point, I think one of the things that we need to do is we need to make sure that we're running a really efficient hydro system, that their costs are minimized, because if costs are minimized, then people's hydro rates are minimized. That's one thing. But a second thing we need to do is to make sure that we're really planning the capacity of the system really intelligently. Every time we build a new power plant, every time we build hydro wires or transmission lines, those costs gets passed on to hydro rates through our bills, and people have to pay more. And so we need to make sure that as we build the energy generation infrastructure, whether that be rehabilitating nuclear or whether it be gas or other forms of power, that we're really thoughtful about how much we're building, where we're building it, so that we're conscious of the impact that has on consumers. I think if we're efficient in how we spend the taxpayer dollars and we're smart in our capacity planning, those are two big areas where I think going forward we can continue to make a difference in keeping rates down for people.
I agree with you, and I like the idea that you're taking your financial expertise and applying it, because that certainly has been one area where they could use a little bit of help. Today I heard on the news, and I was actually blown away, that the Scarborough subway has been in front of council 9 times, and it's going to go back for yet another discussion. But it brings to mind what's happening on Eglinton with the LRT. And I know you've been such an extraordinary advocate for this, because it's not without its challenges as well. So bring us up to speed where this LRT on Eglinton, and it will go actually from the Toronto to Mississauga, so right across all of Eglinton.
That's right.
For you.
So Don, if you don't mind, maybe I'll just give a little bit of background on this.
Sure.
For those who aren't familiar. If we go back to the time when Mayor Miller was in office, during that time an LRT was approved along Eglinton, stretching from about Black Creek across to the airport. It was approved at grade, which means at ground level, down the middle of the road. And those of our viewers who've driven down the Queensway and seen the streetcar go down the middle, or even St. Clair, will get a sense of what that could look like. When Mayor Ford came to office, he canceled the LRT. During the Ford administration, the decision was made to also sell a lot of land that the city owned on the north side of Eglinton. And many of the viewers may be aware of some of the developments that have gone up along the north side of Eglinton, particularly between Martin Grove and Wincott. So that land had been set aside for years for transit, but was sold during that time. When Mayor Tory was campaigning, he campaigned on Smart Track, and Smart Track along Eglinton. And what that meant was heavy rail. GO trains is probably the best example of what heavy rail would look like. But when Mayor Tory started to look into this after he got elected, he realized it would be too expensive and very difficult to build heavy rail along Eglinton. And so he returned back to Mayor Miller's plan of an at-grade LRT. And I became immediately concerned of the impact that would have on our community, and whether that was just a sensible choice for taxpayers as well. And so I started to consult with people in our community, And I met with ratepayers groups. We even held a consultation where Minister Del Duca, our transportation minister, came to the riding. And I heard loud and clear from people in our community that this was not the option that they thought made sense. And I agree with them. It doesn't make sense. And the reason it doesn't make sense is because putting a train along the middle of Eglinton, first of all, would make Eglinton, which is already incredibly busy and congested, particularly at rush hour in the mornings and the evenings, just that much more congested. It would mean that people couldn't make left turns at Martin Grove and at Kipling and at Islington. They'd have to drive past the street they wanted to make a left turn on and then make a U-turn further down and come back. And of course, north-south traffic along Islington or Kipling or Martin Grove or Royal York would also slow down and be congested because you'd have to have three-phase signals. You have to have a signal for the train, a signal for the Eglinton traffic, and a signal for the northbound traffic. So the impact on traffic would be devastating, I think, for our community. But I think what it would also do is drivers would do more of what they're already doing now when Eglinton is congested, is they drive into the side streets. How many neighborhoods do we drive down in our community and we see those yellow signs saying, please slow down? And the reason those signs are there is because a lot of folks are trying to get away from Eglinton and go through the residential neighborhoods to avoid the traffic. So to me, an at-grade option is unacceptable. And so I shared that with the Premier. I went right to her. I sat down with her for half an hour and I walked her through the map of the riding in Eglinton and told her this was something that wouldn't work for our community. I met at least a dozen times with Minister Del Duca, our Minister of Transportation, and I met with the Mayor, and I told him the same thing. So since then, what's happened is, as a result of a lot of this advocacy and the support of our community, the city and Metrolinx, the provincial agency that's responsible for transit, agreed to study grade separation, so either tunneling or something that would see the train going over the road, at the major 5 intersections in our community. So at Martin Grove, Kipling, Islington, Royal York, and Scarlett. And I'm really proud of this. A lot of advocacy went into this, Donna, but that advocacy is a result of them at least looking at it and studying it. And they're going to do a business case and some traffic analysis and come back to the community with that work. So that doesn't mean they're going to do it. That means they're studying it, and that's a step in the right direction. But I'm going to continue to advocate because to me, it makes sense from a community perspective that this train be underground, at least across those 5 streets that I talked about, from Scarlett across to Martin Grove. And it makes sense from a taxpayer perspective and a transit rider's perspective too. Traffic is going to flow that much better. It'll be a much more seamless and quicker ride. And of course, it's the right thing to do by our community. And if we're investing the kind of money that we're investing in Scarborough, as you're talking about, I think Etobicoke deserves no less.
Well, and it may be that it'll never come to fruition. It may go to council 9 times too. So who knows what's going to happen?
Yeah.
But it's nice to know that you're on top of this and that you're engaging and keeping the community informed. I know that I hear that in the community, that people know what's going on and they're delighted with that. So thanks for that. Now, before we end up without some time, I want to really talk about that door-to-door. You had a wonderful bill that you put in and then things changed around. I guess the house got prorogued and the bill went south. Yeah. But I really liked it because it was one of the areas that I had a lot of complaints about. Yeah. And those were those salespeople knocking on your door, getting you to sign for something that you didn't really need, but were talked into. So let's talk about that bill.
Sure. Well, first of all, this bill, this idea, this issue around door-to-door sales really came out of something that you started many years ago, which is the Seniors Advisory Group meetings that I've continued with every month. And at these meetings, I hear from seniors about the issues that matter to them. And one of the issues that I heard about, as you clearly heard about, was this issue of door-to-door salespeople using aggressive and coercive tactics when they come to the door to try to really dupe people into signing contracts or buying products that they don't need or that they pay far more for than they should. And usually the products that I heard the most about were water heaters, furnaces, air conditioners, and water treatment devices. In those 4 areas, that's where I heard the majority of complaints. And that's, if you look at government information in terms of complaints we received, that's where the most complaints were. So I had a bill, a private member's bill, that would have banned the sale door-to-door of those 4 products. And the government, as you said, has adopted that legislation. They made some modifications to it a little bit, but basically there's a bill called Bill 59, the Consumers First Act, and it's working its way through the legislature right now, and it will make it illegal for door-to-door salespeople to come to your door and sell those products unsolicited. And I'm really proud of that, because that will protect seniors and others from these unscrupulous folks.
Well, and you should be. We have about a minute and a half left before we're going to move on. I want to give you an opportunity to speak about a little bit about Silver Creek, if you could do it in about a minute, and if not, we'll catch it on another show. But I know you've been working really hard on this one as well.
I have, and I'm really proud of this one. Silver Creek is a school that's owned by the Toronto District School Board. It's around Wincott and Eglinton, in that area. And it's been leased for decades to organizations that care for children with special needs. And the TDSB was looking at selling the property, which would have displaced the kids, which would have displaced the services. And to me, that was inexcusable and unacceptable. So I've lobbied really, really hard and got the province initially to commit to protecting the services, and then to committing to protect the entire property. And the province has been working with the public school board to figure out if there's a solution there to transfer the ownership of Silver Creek to the province in some way. And we're really close, I think, to a solution. And that'll protect the services for the kids with special needs and the green space for the community. So I'm really proud of that work.
Well, thank you. This gives you a little idea of some of the things that have been going on with Yvan in the constituency, in his particular constituency, but also in a broader perspective, because everything that he does make a difference for a lot of people. I'd like to say thank you. Certainly personally, now that I'm a constituent, you're doing the things that are important, not only for people in my sector, but also for the younger people. You sort of meet the whole spectrum of the ages that are in your constituency, and I think that's particularly important. So a very special thank you to you, and I look forward to our next conversation.
Thank you, Donna. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. And thank you. It's been a pleasure. We'll see you soon.